Hello folks, Dick Fairburn here. There have always been two schools of thought about using gunfire to engage a hostile threat. Careful, precise shooting, or what we might call spray and pray. I got a couple of police officer involved shooting videos that I want to show to illustrate the difference between those two shooting styles. In this first video from Reno, Nevada, we see several police units arriving to a shooting incident. Now there's a single armed suspect. As you watch this video, the report is that the suspect was hit once, according to the reports, despite dozens of rounds being fired by the arriving police officers. This one guy with an M4 stepping out the left side of the car there, I mean, this is, I could only describe this style of shooting as a mag dump response.
Truck. Hold fire. He's down. We got security on the back drop. Hold fire. Where's the gun?
In this second video I'm going to show you, we see a completely different type of shooting style. This was used by an officer in Tacoma, Washington. This is what I would describe as the one-shot, one-kill style of shooting. This guy is so calm, you can see that he just sets his coffee cup up on the dash, doesn't even spill a drop. And makes one shot at 183 yards with a 1x magnification red dot sight.
I don't know. X-ray 316, shot fired, suspect's down. He's on Madison, just south of 67.
Problem solved. Which shooting style is the most likely to save your butt in a self-defense shooting situation? Perhaps more importantly, how do you train to achieve the most effective shooting style? Stick around, I'm going to discuss it. Now, no two gunfights are ever going to be alike, and no one technique of shooting will solve the problem in every kind of situation. You need to adapt your technique to the distance and the threat that you face. But I think we can probably all agree that hitting your adversary is the best style of shooting. It's probably the only way to be sure of winning a fight. Jeff Cooper left us a quote, "50 misses is not firepower. One hit is firepower." In the first incident, multiple officers were firing at the suspect, and they fired almost too many rounds to count to get just one hit, we are told. Now, the environment that they were firing into did not appear to include innocents in the background, but bullets can travel a long ways. Every one of them has a lawyer attached to it, waiting for an unintended injury or death, or even just property damage from something that the bullet hits. Now that officer using that AR rifle literally did a mag dump, firing so fast he couldn't have possibly been aiming to any significant degree. Now the old adage in firearms training goes that you will fight the way you train. Is that really the way he was trained? Is he being trained to use that carbine to just dump 30 rounds as fast as he possibly can? I don't believe that. Or did his training just fall apart in the adrenaline-fueled moment of this event, resulting in panic firing? Now that officer in Tacoma looked as though he wasn't the least bit excited. Set his coffee down, walked to the rear hatch. secured his patrol rifle, chambered a round, and delivered a single effective shot at rather long range for a 1X optical sight. It's easy to say he was better trained than the Reno mag dump guy, but was the difference really better training? Better marksmanship training, maybe. I should be more specific. A number of years ago, I wrote a book called Building a Better Gunfighter. In that book, I document a training program that a few of us developed for a Midwestern state police agency. We changed an almost totally marksmanship-based training program into a program to get them through the next gunfight. The new program we created expanded well beyond just marksmanship training. I call those three training elements the 3 M's: marksmanship, mechanics, and mindset. Before we started implementing that program, I was able to study the previous 10 years of officer-involved shootings with the state police agency. And we found that their hit rate during that 10-year period when they shot at bad guys was 11%. Now various sources around the country quote, police hits rates in the, maybe 20 to 30, 35% range. 11% is the lowest I've ever seen. Yet, the district headquarters around the state from this agency were piled full of trophies and plaques that the troopers won when they went to various pistol matches around the state. They were very skilled marksmen on the pistol range, but they shot terrible on the street. Now, during our study, that 10-year period, there were only 2 incidents in the study where troopers had been shot at or shot by bad guys. And only 2 is a very small sample, so statistically it's not valid, but it was very interesting. The bad guys' hit rate in those 2 incidents was 11%. The same. So the academy commander, in kind of debriefing the study, he said, let me get this right. We train these guys several times a year. I mean, a couple of weeks of firearms training in the academy and 4 or 5 shoots a year thereafter, and they're hitting at the same rate at people we assume have no firearms training at all. What the hell are we doing wrong? And I said, well, the trophies prove that your troopers have excellent marksmanship skills. But that's what you're doing. You're training them to go to the next pistol match. And when they go, they win. You are not training them the skills they need to win a gunfight. And I think that's what we need to change. He said, put your team together. Give me the best gunfighter training program you can come up with. That's what we did, and that's what I documented in my book. Best we knew how to do. Now, why are these skilled marksmen not hitting on the street? Well, it's because their marksmanship training was not being coupled with stress inoculation. That's a term I got from Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman. In other words, they were training under non-stressful conditions. So it didn't allow them to use their marksmanship skills during the rigors of a gunfight. Their skills fell apart because they had not practiced them under stress. And if you study adult learning principles, you learn about different parts of the brain. Forebrain, this is cognitive structured thinking. This is what makes most of us different from the monkeys, not all of us. Another important part of the brain is the midbrain. Some psychologists call this the reptilian brain. Dave Grossman calls it the puppy dog brain. A little warmer and fuzzier, I like puppy dog. Under stress, your midbrain takes control of most of what you do. The forebrain can be trained by talking about things. The midbrain must be trained by doing things, and doing them under stress is the most likely way to program the midbrain effectively. They were training these troopers forebrain skills. They were not training them midbrain skills. And introducing the stress and those adult learning principles is what I think made all the difference. I've been doing this for more than 40 years, studying gunfights, interviewing officers that have been involved in shoots. I have come to believe that marksmanship skills are the least important aspect of winning a fight. Mindset is what will get you through. So our new training program included 3 separate aspects: marksmanship, mechanics, and mindset. Those are my 3 M's. Now, whether you train as a military, a law enforcement officer, or as a civilian, generally the first thing you do is marksmanship training: sight alignment, trigger control, stance, breathing. In many training programs, that's all they do, is teach you how to shoot a pistol effectively. And they try to do that in as low stress an environment as possible so that you succeed. And that's okay in the first stages of training. That's what we need to do. Now, when I say mechanics, the second M, what I'm referring to is running the gun, loading, unloading, more importantly, clearing malfunctions. Because that Glock 17, which is one of the most reliable pistols man has ever made, according to NYPD and their very well-kept shooting statistics, they experience malfunctions during gunfights at approximately 20% of the time. So these pistols that are virtually 100% on the range are malfunctioning about 1 out of 5 shots on the street. Why? Because gunfights don't look anything like the shooting range. You're moving. You may not have a good grip. The gun may be bumping against a wall or something. You got to train under those kind of conditions. Most importantly, you've got to know how to clear malfunctions because they'll happen. Yet this state police program in 1999, right next to the next century, they still did not train their troopers how to clear a malfunction on their semi-auto pistols. And they had been carrying semi-auto pistols for more than 30 years. First major agency in the country to adopt a semi-automatic sidearm. But if their troopers during a qualification shoot, if they had a malfunction with their 9mm, they would hold the pistol downrange, put their offhand in the air, wait for a range officer to come down, clear the malfunction for them, and then give them an alibi shot to get their score up. They were not being taught how to clear their own malfunctions. Yet they occurred on the street. And they didn't know how to fix them. The mindset element of training deals with conditioning the trainee on how to maintain those marksmanship skills, how to use them effectively, the marksmanship and mechanical skills during extreme stress. We're programming that puppy dog brain because it's going to take over during the fight. That's why I say the mindset element of training is absolutely the most important aspect of all. We get a new shooter on the range, whether it's someone going through a concealed carry course, a new recruit at a police academy. Let's say all they really know is the basics of safe gun handling. They've learned how to be safe with this pistol, how to load it, and be ready to fire it. We can have them landing 100% hits on a man-sized target at 7 yards in an hour of training, maybe 2 hours at the most. Yet those troopers who had years and years of range training were missing 89% of the time. They were simply unable to use their marksmanship skills under the stress of combat. Now, our new program featured 3 tiers of progressively stressful training. Most training programs are linear. You start learning how to load the gun, you end up at the final qualification to see if you graduate, and it's from A to Z. But some of the team that I put together were very experienced SWAT trainers, and they said, you know, we've noticed that you don't learn a skill once and then you got it forever. You got to learn it several times under these stressful gunfight conditions. So instead of climbing up a straight set of stairs to get to our goal, it's more like a circular staircase, my friend Bob James said. He said, you go round and round through this training, you repeat those things several times, and every time you go around, you end up a little bit higher up the ladder. So we built our training in cycles of marksmanship, mechanic, and mindset for each cycle. And we did 3 tiers as we trained recruits at our academy. Lowest level, load the gun, keep it running, hit the targets, and then included in that cycle some stressful things: run, jump, physical excitement, and mental excitement using simunition guns to live gunfight against human adversaries. That's the real secret. So by the time they finish that third cycle around the circular staircase, they're at a pretty high level. They're landing hits, they're clearing malfunctions, they're effectively using cover and tactics against live adversaries. And if they fail, boom, they get a stinging hit from a paintball. It hurts. and they learn. Now, a few years after that training program was fully in effect, we again looked at the street performance of that agency in gunfights. That 11% hit rate, the lowest I'd ever seen, had risen to 62% hit rate when they fired their pistols in combat on the street. That's the highest I've ever seen documented. At a conference, a LAPD guy came up to me one time and goes, well, our hit rate is 80%. And I go, really? Because I just saw something in a magazine where one of your firearms instructors said you're running about 25 to 30%. Well, I'm talking about the SWAT guys. And I go, well, maybe the SWAT guys are shooting 80%. I would think they should be able to shoot 80% because that's probably all they do is shoot. But rank and file cops, 62. Highest I've ever seen. Military and law enforcement agencies nowadays conduct their mindset training extensively. Both role-playing with blanks or red guns or, whenever possible, airsoft or simulations. And they also use video simulators. Much of the military live fire training now is not live fire training. It's done on video simulators. Okay, now, Colonel Dave Grossman believes that most of the active shooters we see in this country, the killers, including the guy who just allegedly shot Charlie Kirk, they are avid video gamers. They're training themselves very effectively. So force-on-force type training with the simulation type guns is both costly and time-consuming. And I have learned the hard way over the years that it must be conducted with very strict guidelines to avoid game playing. A lot of times I played the aggressor. I'm mask, throat protector. I've learned to use gloves because training young cadets, a lot of times they focus in on the threat. The threat is the gun in my hands. And I'm getting smacked with ammunition rounds in my hands a lot. So I put on very heavy gloves just to keep the bruises down. But as that role player, it's pretty easy to figure out how to always win. That's not the point. The role players have to understand that their job is to lose the fight if the student does everything correctly. Now, if they don't do everything correctly, whack them, put them down, make them do it again. So you've got to control those role players. So good force-on-force training, whether it's using simulation pistols or airsoft, has to be done very carefully. As I said, it is time-consuming, it is costly. I once attended a tactical combat casualty care class. This is teaching us how to use tourniquets, Israeli battle dressings, clot stopper sponges, chest decompression with needles. This was done in a force-on-force setting. So we had to treat gunshot wounds on our partners or even ourselves in the midst of an airsoft gun battle. We're learning those skills under combat conditions, which means if I ever need to use those skills under combat conditions, I've already done it. I've experienced it. And so I can use those skills when the midbrain takes over. Now, this type of force-on-force training is available for civilian concealed carry citizens, but you got to look around for it. I live in Illinois. There's a group here called Guns Save Lives, and GSL runs some force-on-force airsoft type training in their concealed carry training program. As I said, it's time-consuming and it's costly, but if you really want to be prepared to win a gunfight, you need to do more of that than putting rounds down range on a live fire course. I'm not putting down the live fire course. You need to do that as well. But if you haven't gone out into that mindset type of training, you're not complete as a gunfighter. Now, if this sounds like an ad for my book, Building a Better Gunfighter, it is. I want to announce to you that both versions of my book, Building a Better Gunfighter, are available now on Amazon.com. There's a Kindle book version of this for $9.95. There's the paperback copy for $19.95. Of course, sales tax is going to be added to both of those. Just search for Building a Better Gunfighter. It has been up, the print copies from the original printer, Paladin Press, have been gone for years. It went up as a Kindle edition on Amazon a couple of months ago. We had some technical problems converting the files to work as a paperback. But just recently, about 2 weeks ago, it went up on Amazon, available as a paperback as well. If you follow the kind of training I put forward in this book, it will prepare you to perform like that Tacoma officer who delivered that single effective shot. Not like the guy in Reno who did a mag dump and very possibly didn't score a single hit. Now, you don't have to buy my book to master the 3 M's. There are a lot of good trainers out there. You can even train yourself to develop the necessary skills. And I talk about what-ifing every time you move about your day. Well, I'm pulling into the gas station, I'm going to get gas, I'm going to go in and get something to drink, and I what if? Well, what if there's an armed robbery going on and the guy comes running out the front with a gun in his hand, he's already shot 2 people inside, and he's still ready to shoot somebody else? What am I going to do? What would I use for cover? When will I draw my gun? Am I better to just get cover and stay out of this if possible? What if all those things, and your brain, your forebrain thinks them through, but your mind, midbrain is kind of listening in. So you are kind of programming mindset stuff into that midbrain when you what if. It is not fair to infer that the Reno officers who fired all those shots didn't get any mindset training from their agency. But those spray and pray tactics they used kind of strongly points in that direction. I'm sure they got a lot of marksmanship training. How much force on force mindset kind of training do they get? It's a valid question because a lot of agencies don't do any. Folks, if you think these videos are worthwhile to you, I ask you to subscribe. Hopefully I'm giving you some tips in this video about how to prepare yourself for the toxic, corrosive environment we call a gunfight. I hope you never face one. If you do, I hope you survive it. Maybe a step further, I hope you win it. Y'all be careful out there.
Okay, we got them both here now. You ready? Bud got one. Ginger got one. Oh, she missed it. She usually gets them, doesn't she, Bud? Okay, girl, last one. You ready? You ready? Yeah! That's all there is till next time.